Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Tuesday morning to you all. Hope you guys are doing well out there, and I appreciate you folks joining me this morning as we try to figure out what's going to happen with the weather for your Tuesday. Got two areas to really watch for strong to severe storms. One is in the plains, Oklahoma, Kansas, and then another is here in my neck of the woods, really speaking northeast of me, but eastern North Carolina, even areas of South Carolina, and certainly southeast Virginia stand a chance to see some strong to severe storms today, where we do have a slight risk in some areas as a piece of energy, basically a short wave trough, and we'll talk about what that means, rides through the area and sparks the chance for some strong to severe storms. I do think we'll have scattered strong to severe storms throughout the day today. So with that being said, if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like, and if you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, or just in general, you got anything you just want to get off your shoulders, you want to talk to somebody, you don't have anybody to talk to, remember, it doesn't always have to be weather related. I'm always here for you guys, and reach out to me on social media, wherever it may be. I know it's a tough world out there. Some people are struggling, going through some things, and I'm always here to lend an ear for you guys. Can't always get as detailed as I would probably do in person. It is social media, so but always here for you guys. Reach out, and I'll try to get back to you as quick as possible. With that being said, let's try to figure out what's going to happen with the weather today. Water vapor loop, you got a cluster of ongoing showers and storms here in southern Texas. This is kind of under the influence of ridging, so there's just kind of erratic movement with this, slow movement, kind of outflow-driven storms. So we're going to have a lot of this today, though. The storms will kind of explode down here in Texas, and then they'll fall apart, and then they'll fire up in different areas. So we do have a moderate risk of flooding down here, and we'll talk about that later in the video. We also have a pretty intense, strong to severe portions of this storm, a pretty intense line of storms moving through areas of far eastern Tennessee, is now moving into the mountains of Tennessee and North Carolina, and we'll see how these storms hold together as they cross the higher elevations of the southern Appalachian Mountains, and see if this makes it all the way down into North Georgia, upstate South Carolina, and areas of western North Carolina throughout the day, the morning hours into the early afternoon hours. Then we'll watch a piece of energy, a cold pool kind of area that might fire up a short wave, a little kink in the ridging that could spark some strong to severe storms over here in eastern North Carolina and southeast VA a little bit later today. See some troughing setting up. This will actually surge some dry air for a day or two down into the eastern U.S. and will kind of stabilize the atmosphere for a few days at least here in the eastern U.S. And then you see this area right here where you got the white coming up on your screen. That's some storms beginning to fire up in areas of Kansas. We'll see how these behave throughout the day, and we'll talk about that. And then we're watching a piece of energy out west that could spark severe weather chances in Wyoming, even up to Montana, Colorado, areas of the plains throughout the rest of the week. So we'll look at what's going to happen, though, for today. You got a slight risk of severe storms, a level 2 out of 5. And eastern North Carolina, areas of far southeast Virginia, a marginal risk that extends all the way to Columbia, though, too, the Midlands of South Carolina. Marginal risk for severe storms down here in the southeast coastline, basically the entire coastline, and then a little bit inland of Texas, areas of the southern sections of Louisiana and southwest Louisiana. And then we got a slight risk right in the middle of the country here in the plains, here in Kansas, areas of northern Oklahoma. We'll talk about all these areas in this video. Tornado risk today, just a 2% risk as of now. Not much of a favorable wind flow aloft to support much of a spin to the atmosphere, but some of these could produce a tornado. But I would expect if they do, it'll be weak, short-lived, and certainly no outbreak by any means, like I like to say. So that's always good news. A 15% risk of winds pushing 50 knots or higher. That's 55 to 60 miles per hour and mile per hour readings in this yellow area and also in this yellow area. And then you got a hail threat. Now there is a hatched risk of significant hail in this region, in the black outline region. That is a 10% risk in the black outline area that you see on your screen to see significant hail, which is hail pushing 2-inch in diameter or larger. And then just in the yellow area, there's a 15% risk in this region right here and this region right here of hail in excess of 1 inch in diameter or larger in these two regions. There's a 15% chance of that within 25 miles in any given location. So severe weather is expected again today. There is a flash flooding risk, and this does include the Houston area and surrounding towns and communities. You have at least a 40% risk to see flash flood guidance being met, and all just kind of depends on how much they go off this. How much rain have you seen lately? In this area, you guys have seen a lot of rounds of showers and storms throughout the last several days, so that's why they've thrown out the 40% risk, the moderate risk, which is the red area down here, of flash flood guidance being met. And then you got a slight risk even up here in the central portion of the country, where you could have storms that just kind of move over the same areas. So let's talk about the southeast today. We'll take a broader look at this. And over the next several hours, I can tell you the HRRR model is not doing great with handling this area of storms moving and blasting through. They're starting to leave eastern Tennessee now, but I can tell you this is probably going to continue to weaken. It's just held together a lot more than what the HRRR model was saying it was going to hold together. So, Asheville, you guys are going to see some messy weather to start your morning, Tuesday morning out here in the next hour or so. Boone, some big time storms moving through your area. I wouldn't say big time. It's not like it's severe warned, but you're seeing it happen right now. It's definitely not going to happen in the future. It's happening right now, moving through your area. Watch out, Hickory, Statesville, Shelby, the rest of western North Carolina, upstate South Carolina here in the next couple hours. We'll see how this behaves as it crosses the higher elevations of the mountains as of right now over the next hour or two, but we'll see how this influences the atmosphere over here a little bit later today. We'll certainly see. They all connect. Everything connects with the weather, so we'll see how they kind of tangle together. But today, speaking of that, moving forward, we'll get into the later morning hours. Some storms will start to fire up in southeast Virginia. This is around 3 p.m. Eastern time, and we'll watch as these storms fire up. You got one firing up in upstate South Carolina, and these storms will become more widespread. Could have some big storms also in South Carolina, maybe just east of Charlotte around the Fayetteville area, but I would say the ingredients are best here in southeast VA and then eastern North Carolina, where I think we could have a few supercells out here. I mean, this is around 6, 7, 8 p.m. tonight. You have a few pretty strong looking storms. I'm going to zoom into this area here in a second. And then you see this big cluster of rain down here. And there's just erratic movement. I mean, it is sort of moving to the northeast, but this is outflow driven, meaning, some of these storms will pop off and then they'll kind of just weaken as quick as they pop off. And then other energy will be sparked from its outflow. And then you just can have a storm that really just pops up out of nowhere in certain areas. But a lot of rain can fall in this region. We'll talk more on this when we get to the South Central timeline here in a second, the South Central panel here in a second. But you could have some storms in Florida today in north central Florida, so watch out for that. St. Augustine area, south of Jacksonville. Could see a storm or two, maybe even as far south as the Gainesville area. But these will certainly be the storms to watch here in the southeast. And in fact, let's get a little bit closer to it. Starting off this morning, calms down a little bit about mid to late morning, and then we could have a storm firing up as early as, we move this up a little bit. Oh man, it's in my, okay, here we go. As early as maybe 1 to 2 p.m. could have a big storm fire up here, kind of northwest or west of the Virginia Beach, Norfolk area. Could have some big storms already ongoing, but I think they become more widespread as we get into the later afternoon hours around 4, 5, 6 p.m. And really what's going on here is it's called a shortwave trough. And I'll try to explain this the best way I can. But basically when you have a northwest flow, meaning all your energy is coming in from the northwest and moving southeast. You got a northwest flow and you get these little kinks in the ridge. And these little kinks are kind of caused by like a cold pool of air, which can be sparked by an earlier previous storm system or complex area of storms, kind of like what you're seeing in this area right now this morning. And this can create boundaries or just disturbances in the atmosphere that you can't physically necessarily see, but this helps create just an upward motion of energy in the atmosphere with these little shortwave troughs. It's almost like its own trough of low pressure. And this upward motion causes a spark in the atmosphere, and then we get thunderstorm development. This happens all the time in the summer. You'll get a marginal risk of severe storms. It happens here in South Carolina a lot. It's big time storms. A wave of storms will fire up in Georgia, and then it'll sweep into the South Carolina, and then we'll end up getting a very stormy afternoon or evening. It's kind of what's happening here, except the energy's coming from the northwest and not really from the east or south, the west or the southwest. The energy's coming from the northwest. I'm not sure if I just said northeast, but it's coming from the northwest. These storms will fire up here. Could have a big storm around 5 p.m. north of the Columbia area. Maybe some storms around Fayetteville. It's going to be kind of hard to figure out exactly who sees it, but what I can tell you is the threat for severe weather is the highest here in eastern North Carolina as we're moving forward here. And let's see if we can get this in a little bit more motion right here. No, we're going to get it right here. And bang, storms fire up. Watch out, Raleigh area points east. Big storm here. Fairfield County it's showing. And I don't want to be exact with this because there's no point being exact. We're not going to know exactly where these storms are going to be. But, here it is, 7 p.m. Big storms in the PD of South Carolina, eastern North Carolina. I think the biggest threat in Virginia will be kind of earlier in the afternoon. I think this shifts a little bit further southeast into North Carolina later in the evening. But, certainly if you're in any of these towns and communities in eastern North Carolina, everybody stands a chance to see a strong to severe storm, about an equal chance out here. Some of these could be very photogenic. I was in eastern North Carolina last Sunday, and there's some wide open areas out there. So you're going to see these storms coming. They could produce large hail. And even though there's less than a 2% chance to see a tornado out here, there is a boundary kind of moving in from the northeast. This is a changing of direction, right? Between one area and another area. This could be enough to put a spin to the atmosphere to some of these storms. So, I don't think we should totally neglect the tornado risk here in northeast North Carolina, southeast Virginia today. But these storms continue to trail off the coast of the southeast, and then we're pretty much done. Just a tip, almost like a summer type, a summer type setup where your storms fire up early in the afternoon and last throughout the evening, and by the time you get to the overnight hours, are done. What I can tell you is you're going to get some big-time heating in the Carolinas and Georgia today. Widespread 90s in the eastern Carolinas. There's going to be a little humidity to the air. The humidity will not be compared to what you experience in the deep summer, but you will definitely walk outside this afternoon and you will say, dang, now that is that May heat that we're used to. And you certainly will see it. So this is the little spin. You see this little boundary sinking down here? You see where the temperatures dramatically drop from 1 hour to the next? That is the boundary that we watch. This could create a little spin, little surface low, trough of low pressure flying through this area. Could provide a little spin to the atmosphere right here. So we'll see what happens with that. But very, very warm, guys. Very warm day across the Carolinas and even Georgia. Very, very warm. And then dry air moves in overnight. But there will be some fuel to the atmosphere in this region today. The Northeast, pretty quiet weather. You got some rain moving through areas of West Virginia, Maryland. This will sweep through the Delmarva area throughout the late morning, early afternoon hours. And then after that, calms down. Not a whole lot going throughout the evening, throughout the overnight hours. It's a pretty chill day here in the Northeast. Not a whole lot going on whatsoever really to speak on. The South Central U.S., a little bit of a different story. You got two areas to watch. One is this area of storms that's ongoing, just a cluster of storms in southern Texas. This will continue to spin away and just kind of drift. You'll get the reinitiation off boundaries of more storms in the same area, and this is why you had that flash flooding risk. Storms will become widespread in southern Oklahoma. This is around 3 to 4 p.m. this afternoon. They'll just kind of spin around. A little bit of a spin to the atmosphere, not a spin like for tornadoes, but there's almost like a little bit of a low pressure trying to form down here. And sometimes when you have mesoscale convective systems, areas of storms that trail off into the Gulf of Mexico, sometimes they like to spin up, create a little bit of a circulation in areas of the Gulf of Mexico, and almost like a tropical air mass down here. And there's not really a great directional pull in any given direction down here, meaning these storms could pop up and just kind of float over the same areas. Like, for example, here in southern Mississippi, pretty strong storms in this area. And, you know, you don't even, I don't even think you have a marginal risk in Mississippi today. You don't. But I could see one being issued in southern Mississippi today for sure, as some of these storms could be strong to severe in southern Mississippi. But, you know, these storms will kind of fire up within a couple hours. They'll fall apart by the time you get into this evening. Next thing we'll talk about is this cluster of storms is trying to begin to form. You got some convection beginning to form here in Kansas this morning. And then as we get into this afternoon, we'll see how these storms behave. But these could be very photogenic storms. And if you're under these storms, they could be very powerful. They're riding that the southern counties of Nebraska, and then they'll begin to dip down into the northern counties, kind of northeast counties of Kansas, and then they will dip down into just northeast Kansas in general. Could have some more big-time storms that develop along kind of the central Kansas-Nebraska state line right here in this region. Could have some, you know, very isolated, strong to severe storms here in and around the Springfield, Missouri area. You know, you can't neglect these, but this is really the big cluster of storms that we watch. We're getting into about 10, 11 p.m. at this point. This is still sweeping through eastern Kansas. This is beginning to move through western Missouri. And then we get into the overnight hours, and we still have ongoing rain up in this region. And that's why you do have a little bit of a flash flooding risk up here in Nebraska in this region. All right, so rainfall between now and the next 48 hours. Anywhere from 2 to 3 inches of rain is possible. This is from the National Weather Service, too, down here in southeast Texas. So you guys could see a lot of rain over the next 2 days in this region. And even if you go up into, if you just look up in Nebraska, you know, definitely could get a lot of rain, too. And I know this isn't a lot, but you guys have not seen a lot of rain. So, you know, inch and a half of rain in these portions of Nebraska and northern Kansas and Kansas. That could, you know, add up quick because the soil is probably dry and it can't bring in as much moisture as quick as if the moisture was, the soil was somewhat already kind of wet, if that makes sense. Causes a lot of runoff if you get a lot of rain on really dry soil really quickly. So moving up here, a little bit closer look at these Kansas storms. They will sweep through. And I mean, some of these storms, early, 1 p.m., some of these storms could be powerful, you know, and the HRRR model ain't perfect. I know that's what I show every time, and it certainly is off a lot on these ridging setups, which this is a ridging setup. But, you know, watch out in northern Kansas, southern Nebraska. Could have some powerful storms producing some large hail, damaging winds in these areas throughout the afternoon. And like I said, they will sweep through northeast Kansas. They very well could be sweeping through central Kansas. But you got some more storms firing up back here. And these could be intense. Some of these could produce a tornado. So please don't neglect the tornado. If you're in the far northern counties, especially kind of the central far northern counties, if you will, of Kansas, and the central southern counties in Nebraska, please watch out for some powerful storms later this afternoon and this evening in this region. These storms could certainly pack a punch. Sorry for clearing my throat so much in this video. The north central U.S., some rains moving through areas of eastern South Dakota, even areas of eastern North Dakota. And then, you know, we just talked about this storm development down here in Nebraska and Kansas. Could get some storms that fire up area, and basically the entire southern half of Minnesota has almost an equal chance to see some storms, even into northwest Iowa. You keep this moving here, and we'll watch for some more storms. Could even get some storms up here in eastern North Dakota. It's definitely possible. We're getting deep into May now. You've lost pretty much the grip of winter. So, you know, you even get some ingredients up here for some strong to severe storms, and then we keep moving, and that's pretty much it. You do have a chance for basically, I would say, you know, if you go and look at the Storm Prediction Center, you could get some strong storms even up here, I would say, even in eastern North Dakota. And western North Dakota. Just noticed my cat was in here. Caught me by surprise. But this is kind of day one, kind of the appetizer day, if you will, of an active stretch of weather up here into the northern plains. We'll talk about that here in a second. But moving forward here, temperatures, hot spot today will be the eastern Carolinas and areas of Georgia and Florida. But then it'll warm up big time eastern Texas, eastern Oklahoma, southwest. I'm getting my directionals all mixed up. I'm sorry, guys. If I've mixed up my directions so much, I say so many directions, so many areas of states in this video. It's not intentional. It's not because I think that this is actually eastern Texas or Tennessee. You know, I like to call it Tennessee too. I just get a little ahead of myself. Western Texas, western Oklahoma, and then southwest Kansas will be very warm today also. But more of a typical kind of spring day in the Ohio Valley with you got a little bit of a troughing moving through. So a little bit of a cooler day in the Northeast. Stable air, chill day, but it will be a chill day. A little bit of a chilly day up here in Boston, points north. Pennsylvania will be pleasant, you know, in the 60s and 70s, but a little bit chilly up here in the Northeast. Active weather coming to the northern plains and the plains areas just in general. Eastern Wyoming, eastern Colorado, western Kansas, western Nebraska, basically the western Dakotas, even up into southeast Montana. Could have some severe weather. There's a 5% risk of a tornado. We'll see if this increases. And then the wind threat, 15% risk, hail threat, 15% risk. But it's kind of a dry line setup with an upper level low swinging through. So we'll see what this happens. And then the threat shifts a little bit further east in time and a pretty large slight risk for Thursday. We'll see how this behaves in the later updates going forward. So that's all I got. God bless all y'all. Y'all have a great Tuesday, and I should be with you guys this evening, but I might take a night off too. Just want to throw that out there. God bless all y'all. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.